I never imagined I'd be the kind of man sharing the wreckage of his personal life online. Yet here I am, trying to piece together the shattered remains of the life I thought I had. For 25 years, I believed my marriage was solid. We had our highs and lows, of course, like any couple, but I always thought we'd make it through. I never expected my wife to be the one to sink the ship. Her name, or rather, was Claire. Claire had always been the kind of woman who drew people in, bright, magnetic, the center of any room. But over the last year, that light started to fade. The warmth turned cold, the laughter replaced by sharp words and long silences. I told myself it was stress. Claire had recently been promoted at the financial firm where she worked. Ambition had always been her fuel, and she threw herself into this new role with everything she had. Then came the name I grew to hate, Mr. Benson. At first it was nothing, just workplace chatter. Benson said this, or Benson thinks that. I brushed it off. It was normal. Or so I believed. The changes started small. Claire began working later. Then, much later. Early departures, late arrivals, endless scrolling through her phone at night. I convinced myself she was just dedicated. I wanted to be supportive. But the distance between us grew. Conversations became mechanical. Her patience vanished, and intimacy disappeared entirely. All was an excuse. Too tired, too stressed, too busy. I told myself it was just a rough patch. Deep down, I knew it was something worse. The breaking point came 2 weeks ago. Our daughter, Sophie, was getting married, a moment I had dreamed about since the day she was born. It should have been the happiest time of our lives. Instead, it became the setting for Claire's ultimate betrayal. The day before the wedding, I was digging through the attic, searching for an old keepsake Sophie wanted to include in the ceremony. That's when I found it, Claire's old tablet. I didn't even know it still worked. Out of curiosity, I turned it on. I thought I'd find old photos. What I found instead destroyed everything. The tablet was still synced to her email. Dozens of messages between her and Benson. At first professional, then personal, intimate, flirtatious. And then, the photos. Nothing explicit, but intimate enough to make my stomach churn. Finally, a hotel reservation appeared, the same dates as one of her business trips. My hands shook as the truth crashed over me. Claire hadn't been at the office. She'd been with him. That evening, after Sophie left to stay with her fiancé, I confronted her. "Claire," I said, holding up the tablet. "What the hell is this?" Her face drained of color. "Daniel, where did you get that?" "That doesn't matter," I hissed. "What matters is why my wife is sneaking around with her boss." "It's not what you think," she stammered. "He's just a mentor, someone I look up to." "A mentor?" I snapped. "Mentors don't book hotel rooms with their mentees. Do you think I'm a fool?" The lies fell apart quickly. Tears, excuses, desperate attempts to minimize what she'd done. "It didn't mean anything. It was just a mistake. I swear it's over." "Over?" I barked. "You think that makes it okay? You think that erases the betrayal?" She tried to touch me. I stepped back. I couldn't stand the sight of her. "Daniel, please. Let's not ruin Sophie's wedding. We can talk after." The audacity of it stunned me. She wanted me to pretend, to smile, and play the loving husband for one more day. "Fine," I said coldly. "For Sophie. But this isn't over." That night, I barely slept. Rage and disbelief churned inside me. How long had this been going on? How could she betray me? Betray us like this? The next morning, I put on my mask. Claire acted like nothing had happened, smiling and laughing as she got ready. It made me sick. At the ceremony, I kept my distance, focusing entirely on Sophie. She looked radiant, so full of hope. It broke my heart to know that the foundation of her parents' marriage had crumbled beneath her. The reception was where everything collapsed. Claire had too much wine, her smile too forced. And then, during her toast, she crossed a line I'll never forgive. "I just want to say," she began, voice trembling, "how proud I am of Sophie and Liam. Marriage is a journey. It's not always easy. We make mistakes. But love is about forgiveness and moving forward together." The room fell silent. She wasn't talking to Sophie. She was talking to me. It was a public plea for redemption, hidden inside a speech meant for our daughter. I couldn't take it. I stood up and walked out, leaving her standing there, glass raised, face frozen in panic. That was the moment I knew there was no going back. Outside, the cold air hit my face like a slap. My heart was pounding. Claire had turned what should have been a celebration into a confession. Minutes later, Liam, my new son-in-law, found me. "Daniel, are you okay?" "I just needed some air," I lied. "The father-daughter dance is coming up," he said gently. I nodded and returned inside, where whispers followed me. Claire sat at the head table, pretending everything was fine, but I saw the fear behind her eyes. The dance with Sophie was bittersweet. For a few moments, I forgot about Claire and Benson. But as soon as the music stopped, the fury returned. After the reception, once everyone had gone, I cornered Claire in the kitchen. "What the hell was that toast?" I demanded. "I was trying to show you that I regret it," she said softly. "You regret getting caught," I snapped. "It got out of control," she whispered. "You cheated, you lied, and now you've humiliated me in front of everyone." I was trying to fix things. "Fix things?" I laughed bitterly. "You think a few vague words are going to fix this?" That night, lying awake in the guest room, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let Claire control the story anymore. I was done being the naive, trusting husband. It was time to fight back. The next day, I began gathering evidence. While Claire was out, I searched the house, and in her desk, I found it. Receipts for dinners, hotels, flights, all under her name and Benson's. My hands shook as I photographed them. This wasn't just an affair. She'd been using our money to fund it. When she came home, she greeted me with a strained smile. "How was your day?" "Productive," I said. "We need to talk." Her hand froze. "Talk about what?" I didn't answer. I just walked away, leaving her to stew in her fear. The next morning, I decided it was time to confront her again. Sitting at the kitchen table, I slid my phone across to her. On the screen, the photos of the receipts. "Care to explain these?" I asked. Claire's face went pale. "Where did you get those?" "Does it matter?" I snapped. "How long did you think you could use our money to fund your affair?" "It's not what you think," she murmured. "It's exactly what I think," I shot back. "Dinners, hotels, trips, all paid for with our savings while you were with him." "Yes, I made mistakes," she said, voice rising. "But you were distant. I felt invisible." "And that justifies this?" I shouted. "You could have talked to me, but you chose betrayal." She glared at me, defiant now. "You're not perfect either. You stopped seeing me." "Don't you dare try to blame me," I snarled. "I worked for this family, and this is how you repay me." She stormed out, slamming the door. I stayed there, chest heaving, anger boiling over. She wasn't sorry. She was only sorry she got caught. And now, the real battle had begun. Claire avoided me for the rest of the day, hiding in the bedroom like a cornered animal. I could hear her pacing, muttering to herself, probably trying to figure out her next move. I didn't bother trying to talk to her. The time for discussions was over. This was war now, and I needed a strategy. That evening, she finally came out. Her hair was a mess, her eyes red from crying, but her expression was sharp, almost venomous. "So what's your plan, Daniel?" she demanded, leaning against the doorway. "You're going to humiliate me, destroy our family, Is that what you want? I set my phone down and met her gaze. What I want is accountability. I want you to take responsibility for what you did. She laughed, not with humor, but with bitterness. Accountability? Don't act like you're innocent in all of this. You ignored me for years. I was invisible to you. You turned to Benson, I shot back. That's not my fault. That's on you. She crossed her arms and smirked. Fine. Play the victim. But don't pretend you're a saint. Spare me your deflections, I said coldly. This isn't about me. This is about your lies. The next morning, I contacted a lawyer. Her name was Laura, and she came highly recommended. A no-nonsense professional who had seen it all. I laid everything out for her. The affair, the financial betrayal, the evidence. You've done your homework, she said after reviewing the documents. This is solid. If she tries to fight, she's going to lose. I don't want a drawn-out battle, I told her. I just want to protect myself and Sophie. Laura nodded. We'll start by filing for legal separation and drafting a post-nuptial agreement. That'll make sure she can't take advantage of you financially. And since Sophie is an adult, custody won't be an issue. But prepare yourself. Claire won't go quietly. I'm ready, I said. When I returned home, Claire was waiting in the kitchen, swirling wine in her glass like nothing was wrong. Where were you? She asked, her tone probing. None of your business, I replied, heading for the stairs. Daniel, she called after me, her voice suddenly soft. We need to talk. About what? I asked, stopping but not turning. About us, she said. About how we move forward. I turned then, laughing bitterly. Move forward? After what you did? There is no moving forward, Claire. Not anymore. So that's it, she snapped, her softness gone. You're just going to throw away 25 years of marriage? You already did, I said quietly. Now I'm just cleaning up the mess. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, replaying everything. Her betrayal, her lies, her audacity. But one thing became clear. I couldn't let her win. Days passed in tense silence. Claire tried to act like the perfect wife, cooking, asking about my day, pretending everything was normal. But I saw through it. Every conversation felt like a chess match. Finally, I made my move. I handed her the post-nuptial agreement across the table. She stared at the folder like it was a bomb. What's this? It's a post-nup, I said evenly. It outlines how things go from here. Financially, legally, everything. If you're serious about fixing this, you'll sign it. She laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. Fixing this? You're not trying to fix anything. This is about control. You want to punish me. No, I replied calmly. It's about protecting myself. You lied. You cheated. You used our money to fund your affair. I'm done playing the fool. She shoved the chair back and stood abruptly. And if I don't sign? What then? Are you going to drag me to court? Humiliate me in front of Sophie? Destroy what's left of this family? If you don't sign, I said coldly, we go to court. And I have everything I need to win. The receipts, the emails, the hotel bookings. All of it. You won't talk your way out of this. Her face twisted with anger, but beneath it for the first time I saw fear. She was losing control. You think you're the victim here? She hissed. You think you've been the perfect husband? You haven't, Daniel. You've been cold, distant. Enough, I snapped. I'm done listening to your excuses. This isn't about me. It's about what you did. She stood there, trembling, her fists clenched. Then, without another word, she stormed upstairs and slammed the bedroom door. The house fell silent. I sat alone at the kitchen table, staring at the folder. Had I pushed too hard? Or not hard enough? I realized I didn't care anymore. Claire had made her bed. Now she could lie in it. The next day, Laura and I finalized the details. "This case is airtight," she told me, flipping through the evidence. "If she refuses to sign, the court will side with you." "That's all I want," I said, "to protect myself and my daughter." That evening, Claire emerged from the bedroom, pale and hollow-eyed. She sat down across from me, the post-nup in her hands. "I read it," she said quietly. "And?" I asked. She stared at me for a long time, searching for sympathy, forgiveness, anything. "I'll sign it," she said finally. "But only for Sophie. She doesn't deserve to see this family fall apart." "Good," I replied calmly. "Then we can move forward." But as she signed her name, I knew this wasn't the end. This was just the beginning. The tension only grew after that. The house became a silent battlefield. Claire moved like a ghost, clearly plotting her next move. I knew she wouldn't go down easily. A few days later, she finally spoke. "I hope you're happy now," she said one morning as I sipped my coffee. "You've got your little document. But don't think this means you've won." "This isn't about winning," I replied. "It's about making sure you can't destroy what's left of this family." "Destroy?" she scoffed. "You're the one dragging lawyers into this, turning our marriage into a transaction. You're more worried about your pride than Sophie." "Don't you dare bring Sophie into this," I snapped, slamming my mug onto the table. "Everything I've done is to protect her from your mess." Claire smirked, defiance flashing in her eyes. "Protect her? From what? The truth? Because if you think she doesn't know something's wrong, you're delusional." That hit a nerve. Sophie had always been perceptive, and I'd worked hard to shield her from this chaos. Now Claire was threatening to expose everything. "You wouldn't dare," I said, my voice low. "Wouldn't I?" she whispered. "Push me, Daniel, and I'll make sure everyone knows your side of the story isn't so perfect." I clenched my fists. "If you want to play that game, be my guest. But I'm the one with the evidence, the receipts, the messages. You can try to spin it, but I'll make sure the truth comes out." Her smirk faltered for a split second, but she quickly recovered. "Do whatever you want, but you're not the only one who can play dirty." That night, I lay awake in the guest room, her words echoing in my head. Claire wasn't going to make this easy. She'd always been manipulative. But I wasn't the same naive husband anymore. I knew her game now, and I was ready to beat her at it. The next day, I met with Laura again. "She's threatening to go public," I told her, "to twist the story." Laura didn't flinch. That's expected. Women like her hate losing control. "But you've taken the right steps. The post-nup, the evidence. Just stay composed. Don't give her ammunition." When I came home, Claire was pretending I didn't exist, sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone, waiting for me to slip up. But I refused to give her that satisfaction. I focused on Sophie instead. I called her that evening to ask about the honeymoon. Her voice was light and happy, filled with excitement. For a brief moment, I felt peace, knowing she was safe from the storm brewing back home. But peace never lasts. As soon as I hung up, Claire cornered me in the kitchen. "You didn't tell her, did you?" she asked sharply. "Of course not," I replied, brushing past her. "I'm not like you. I don't air our dirty laundry." Her face twisted with rage, but she didn't respond. She just turned and walked away. I knew the battle was far from over, and I wasn't going to lose. The days that followed felt like the hush before a storm. Claire kept to the bedroom or drifted through the house with her phone in hand, whispering into it behind closed doors. I kept my focus where it belonged, locking down accounts, changing passwords that were mine alone, documenting every transaction that tied back to those dinners, those hotel rooms, those flights with Benson's name in the margins. It wasn't paranoia. It was survival. The tipping point came a week later, right after dinner. My phone buzzed. Sophie. Her voice was warm, a little breathless with travel. "Hey, Dad. We just got back from Montreux. It was incredible." I'd smiled in spite of everything. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. I can't wait to hear all about it." There was a pause, hesitant air filling the line. "Dad, is everything okay with you and Mom?" My throat tightened. I'd done everything to protect her from this, but Sophie had always been too perceptive to miss the tremors. "Why do you ask?" I kept my voice steady. At the reception, Mom said some things that sounded like they weren't about me and Liam at all. And when I called her yesterday, she sounded strange. I closed my eyes. "Your mother and I are working through some things," I said carefully. "It won't touch you and Liam, I promise." She was quiet for a beat. "Okay, just, if you need me, I'm here." I thanked her and hung up. The moment the line clicked dead, anger flooded in like a tide. Claire's actions had bled into our daughter's happiness. That, more than anything, was unforgivable. I found Claire in the living room, legs tucked under her, glass of wine balanced on a hardcover she wasn't reading. Without a word, I set a thick folder on the coffee table. She glanced at it, bored, then lifted the cover. Photos, screenshots, PDFs of statements, the hotel confirmation with both names. The corporate card charge reimbursed out of our joint account. The chain of emails that started with following up on quarterly projections and ended with a champagne emoji. Her knuckles whitened on the edges of the folder. "Why are you doing this, Daniel?" "Because you left me no choice," I said. "Because you wanted silence and control. Because you turned our life into a stage and expected me to play the fool." She laughed then, brittle and defensive, but her eyes were wide. "And what? You'll run to court? Parade all of this in front of Sophie?" "It's not about optics," I said. "It's about truth. You destroyed this marriage. I'm making sure you don't destroy anything else." The next morning, the papers arrived. Legal separation, filed by Laura, citing infidelity and financial misconduct. The process server handed the envelope to Claire at the doorway. I watched her read. Her face drained, then bloomed with hot, panicked color. "So this is how you end it?" she whispered, the words sharp and shaking. "No," I said. "This is how you chose for it to end." What followed was weeks of procedures, emails, and carefully staged conversations at the kitchen table where every sentence was a potential exhibit. Claire tried every angle, the mea culpas, the tears, the righteous anger, the victim narrative about being ignored. But the evidence didn't care about tone. It sat there, quiet and devastating. And when Laura spoke, the law did the rest. Eventually, Sophie learned the truth, not because I wanted her to, but because there was no longer a way to keep it contained. She cried over the phone, asked 100 questions, apologized for things that weren't hers to carry. "It's not your fault," I told her softly. "None of this is on you." When we finally met for coffee, she squeezed my hands for a long time, eyes red. "I'm proud of you," she said, "for not letting it break you." I nodded, though the word break felt too close to what the last months had been. Not a collapse exactly, but a relentless pressure, like standing under a waterfall and training yourself to breathe. Claire signed the post-nup. She signed the separation papers. We divided what had to be divided. She left with her clothes, her keepsakes, the furniture she loved more for its style than its comfort. The house stayed. The savings stayed. My dignity stayed. But even with the signatures inked and the documents filed, there were aftershocks. The call from HR at Claire's company. An internal review, they said. Not my doing. I hadn't contacted them. But rumors travel faster than lawyers. Later, I heard Benson had taken a leave of absence to focus on personal matters. I didn't celebrate. I didn't need to. Some endings don't deserve a victory lap. On a gray afternoon a month later, I found myself sitting alone in the living room. The silence felt new. Not hollow. Not hostile. Just quiet. I could hear the hum of the refrigerator, the faint tick of the clock in the hallway. Somewhere down the block a dog barked, short and cheerful, and for a second I thought about the simple, particular happiness of that sound. I brewed tea, not coffee. I took it to the back step and watched the late light slide across the yard. I thought about the man I'd become in this season of tearing down, a man who keeps records, who learns the rhythms of a lawyer's calendar, who understands that love, unguarded and unreciprocated, can become a liability you owe interest on. And then I thought about the man I wanted to be next. Not harder, not cynical, just wiser, boundaried, capable of joy that doesn't require pretending anything is different than it is. Sophie and Liam came over for dinner that weekend. We grilled vegetables. Liam burned the onions, and we ate them anyway. After the plates were cleared, Sophie lingered in the kitchen while the dishes soaked. "How are you really, Dad?" she asked. I told her the truth. Some days I still wake up angry. Some days I forget for a whole hour, and then it hits again. But there are moments now, more of them, when I feel like myself. And that feels like a miracle. She leaned her head on my shoulder. "It's not a miracle," she said. "It's you." Later that night, after they left, I found the attic box I'd been looking for on the morning everything broke open. The keepsake Sophie wanted for the wedding, a tiny pressed flower from a hike we took the summer she turned 10, was still in there, between 2 sheets of wax paper. I'd forgotten it once. I wouldn't forget it again. I put it in a frame and hung it in the hallway where the morning light would catch it. A few weeks after that, Claire texted me. It was the first time I'd heard from her since the separation became official. "I'm clearing out a storage unit. There are a few boxes with your name on them. When can you pick them up?" I stared at the message for a long minute and typed, "Leave them with the attendant. I'll grab them this week," she responded. "You were a good husband, Daniel. I know that now." I let the message sit. Then I deleted it. Insight isn't restitution. Some acknowledgments arrived too late to be of any use. At the storage place, the attendant wheeled out 3 boxes. One held old bills and manuals to appliances we no longer owned. One was filled with winter scarves and a photograph of a seaside town we'd visited once, years back, where the wind had made us both laugh for no reason. The 3rd box had a leather-bound notebook. Mine, from when Sophie was a toddler. I flipped it open. Lists of groceries, half-sketched home repair diagrams, a note to myself about buying tickets to a children's play, a life archived in minor keys. I took the notebook home, set it on the desk in the study, and opened a new page. Not for a plan. Not a ledger. Just a page. I wrote the date. Then I wrote, "I am not broken. I am changing." Spring edged into summer. The house learned my footsteps again. I replaced the living room rug with one Sophie picked out, brighter, kinder under bare feet. I rehung the frames on the wall so that the empty spaces didn't look like absences, but like pauses. I cooked better. I slept a little deeper. I stopped checking the door at night as if the past might come back in. Every now and then, I'd see a black sedan that looked like Benson's model glide down our street and feel the old rush of adrenaline. Then it would pass, and the feeling would pass with it. The world kept being itself. Trains moved on schedule. The clerk at the corner market learned my name. The maple in the yard stretched new leaves toward the sky, as if the only strategy it had ever needed was to keep growing. One Sunday, I took a long drive up to Harrow Point, a little bluff above the water that locals used for kite flying and proposals. I parked, climbed the path, and watched the river unspool below. A couple argued quietly near the railing, young and earnest, the argument more about fear than about facts. I felt a pang for them, a hopeless little wish to tell them something useful, that there are faults you can repair with time and tenderness, and others that run to the bedrock, that the bravest thing you can do is tell the truth sooner than is comfortable, that forgiveness and trust are cousins, not twins. I didn't say anything. They would learn what they needed to learn. The wind lifted, the water flashed. I breathed and let the day be just a day. When I got home, a voicemail waited from Laura. "Final paperwork is stamped and filed," she said. "You're all set, Daniel. If you need anything else, you know where to find me." I texted her back my thanks. Then I texted Sophie. "Dinner Wednesday?" "Your pick." She sent back a string of emojis and yes. That evening I straightened the study. I tucked the folder of evidence into a box labeled taxes and legal, not because I intended to revisit it, but because chaos deserves a boundary even in memory. On the top shelf, beside the box, I placed the framed, pressed flower. The tiny petal, amber and delicate, seemed to hold the sun. Sometimes I still think about the exact moment the old life ended, the click of a tablet waking after years of sleep, the sound of a heart recognizing what the eyes are seeing. And I think about the moment the new life began. It was smaller, quieter, a kettle singing. My own name, spoken with steadiness in an empty house. The decision not to explain myself to anyone who hadn't earned the explanation. If there's a moral here, and maybe there doesn't have to be, it's this. Love is not the absence of vigilance. Trust is not the absence of proof. And dignity, once you fight for it and win it back, is the kind of possession you guard like a hearth. Claire chose her path. I chose mine. I won't pretend I'm grateful for the lesson, but I am grateful for what came after it. A life I recognize as mine. A daughter whose hand is steady in mine when we cross a busy street. A home that sounds like rest. Rachel and Mr. Harrington belong to someone else's story. In mine, there is Daniel, who learned to tell the truth. Sophie, who believed him. Liam, who stands beside her and grills the onions too long. Laura, who did her job cleanly and with a kind of mercy. And a quiet house that holds no one's secrets anymore. I didn't get the ending I imagined when I said vows in front of family and friends 2.5 decades ago. But I have something I didn't know I'd ever need. The beginning after the ending. And on most mornings now, when the light comes in and the floor is cool under my feet, I can feel it. Simple, steady, enough. I survived the storm. The scars remain, yes. Little raised seams you can feel when you run your fingers over the past. But they're not tender anymore. They're reminders that skin closes, that bones knit, that people do, in fact, mend. Claire may have shattered our marriage. She did not break me. And that, in the end, is my victory.